All right. We're going to start by finishing up in Exodus. Welcome to Wednesday night Bible class. Greetings to everybody online. I am Brother McCoy, and we're going to finish up. Exodus. Okay. Now, might like reading this. I just looked this up. My reading this and she looked the mic up.
Exodus comes from the Septuagint, which provides it from the primary event found in the book, the deliverance from slavery and exodus or departure of the Israelite nation out of Egypt by the hand of Yahweh, the God of their forefathers. Yahweh.
Now, this is right here just telling us that Exodus, and it just explains how God delivered and promised what their forefathers. But here's something. Now I want to play this. It might be a little bit long, but I'll cut it.
The Lord said to Moses, "Consecrate to me every firstborn male. The first offspring of every womb among the Israelites belongs to me, whether human or animal." Then Moses said to the people, "Commemorate this day, the day you came out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, because the Lord brought you out of it with a mighty hand. Eat nothing containing yeast. Today, in the month of Aviv, you are leaving. When the Lord brings you into the land of Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites, the land he swore to your ancestors to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you are to observe this ceremony in this month."
Now we can see in Exodus chapter 13, 1 through 16, explains how God had brought them out of Egypt. And that one question I was wondering about the yeast. And explained that God didn't want them to have yeast in their bread when they do a remembrance. So it seems like at that time, that's the only time they would not allow to put yeast in it. So now we're looking at it again. This is the Israelites. Over 600,000 people and animals left in Haiti together. Now, here's something I want to ask you. How did Moses keep these people together? Anybody? I mean, this is a group of people, animals, livestock, and Moses basically kept them together and safe. do you think, how do you think that was done?
It wasn't really Moses that was keeping them together. The statement you made is like he exerted some power over them. He was speaking for God, and they not believe him, then they would have been lost anyway. So say he did it, it's kind of taking it away from what God happened. And I can add, he did have some other men there. He had his brother Aaron, so they led them. As many as led them, they followed.
Moses had help. God let him show them how to do this. Now, this is the sheepdog. What is the function of a sheepdog? Walking around the sheep. Say it again. Around the sheep. Around the sheep. And what else? So keep them in a group, basically keep them with the flock. Does the sheep recognize, remind you of somebody else? It's something we do. Because basically the sheepdog, he runs from the back and into the front, keeping them in one group. So nobody won't straggle off ahead, somebody don't get left behind, and at the same time protect them from animals, wolves, or any danger. That is the job of the sheepdog. Now, look at this. A guide. Have you ever been a tour guide, a teacher, a parent? How difficult is it to move a group of people to one place to another? Why? How difficult is it? Being a teacher, being an officer, student, worker, how difficult is it?
It's difficult, but you know what makes it easy? Easier,
What's that?
have a plan ahead of time.
Have the plan ahead of time. Because if you know that you're gonna be dealing with a group, then you are able to put a plan in place and you get the people to help you execute the plan. That will greatly increase your chances of being successful in moving a group from one place to another. And not only moving them from one place to another, but controlling them, as you say, like the sheepdog does, control them while you move them.
God had the plan to move the Israelites from Egypt to the promised land. None of them knew where they was going. So how did Moses had other people saying, you got me out here, we walk in the wild, we don't know what's happened, we was better off there. Look at this man. He's trying to control, keep everybody safe or in the same group. But look at this. Unseen problem. Difficult pattern. Difficult needs and wants. Difficult level of focus, injuries, and get lost. Sometimes, as the world beat up on us, we forgot that we have somebody who watches over us. Sometimes we don't know what path to go. Sometimes there are different needs or wants. We don't know what we want. We don't know what, do we want Christ, do we want this, do we want that? Sometimes we get so bogged down with the world and Satan that we get different. At different levels. I mean, there's times I'm thinking, when I'm like, why am I doing this? Then I gotta realize because I have Christ. So my road wasn't planned to be easy. Christ told me it's gonna be hard.
When I look at that picture, the thought that comes to mind is like herding cats. You know, that's something you can't really do, herding cats. When you think you got one thing taken care of, another group goes off in a different direction. But what I see when you have this kind of chaos, as Bobby said, you don't have a plan, you don't really have a leader. People have to be able to look to you as a leader and believe in your leadership, so they'll be willing to follow. And as you see in this little picture, it's a cute little picture, but all the little ones is doing whatever they want to do. And he is like, like he's the hopeless.
And you can see it in his face. But you know what we have? Like I said, we need leaders to guide us in the way of Christ. We have elders who's here. They are our shepherds, but they are our sheepdogs too. They do protect us. They don't want you to walk somewhere that you ain't. They're here to help you. They don't want you to get lost. Like Jesus said, one to go off. It's their job to go back and find out what's going on. You get injured, you sick in the hospital, they go visit. That's their job. Their job is to keep the flock strong and keep them healthy. Because there's going to be a time that they're going to be called on to. But here's life as a dilemma. They had no map. They had no GPS. There was over 600,000 man plus more than livestock, flocks, and herds. Family, belong, chaos, and noise. They had all that going at one time. Even though Moses got upset sometimes. He said, wow, these people get on my nerves. These people get on my nerves. Let's be honest. We love our people sometimes, but sometimes our people get on our nerves. And I'm gonna be honest with it. You cannot tell me, they get sometimes I'm like, you know, my last nerve, but I gotta remember. I'm here to help you. I gotta be patient. Patience is the key. You gotta be patient with certain people. You gotta be patient. Imagine Jesus wasn't patient with us. Where would we be? Jesus, I'm gonna be patient. You gonna come around here. Now, anybody, can y'all see that? How are the Israelites going to be led out of Egypt to the Sinai desert? How would everybody receive the command? Communication. How would everybody keep in a group? And how is God going to bring them out by their divisions? You can find that in Exodus 12 and Exodus chapter 12 and verse 51. How are they going to be led out? Where they are going? Anybody can answer some of them? Go ahead.
I talked about a plan, and then, that's the last question, how's God going to bring them out by their divisions? That's that shows you how great God is, that here you are dealing with at least a minimum of 600,000, you know, it was estimated to be over 1 million when you really look at it, but, you know, it shows that they're gonna be laid out by divisions, and so that shows planning and that shows structure. And so, it goes back to what Brother Deck said. It goes back to God. You know, God told Moses what was going to happen, and He's telling them what to do. And you know, it's up to Moses the plan is in place, and it's up to Moses to execute the plan with people, and it's up to people to follow the directions on the execution of the plan. So, to answer to all your questions, all the questions up there I see is God. How are the Israelites going to be led out of Egypt? By Moses through God. How will everyone receive communication? You know, through Moses, by God through Moses. How will everyone be kept in a group? By God. The answer starts with by God. So,
yeah, everybody by God, but you know, I went to Hebrews 11, and you know, we also had to add faith. Of course, we had to have faith in what he was doing, God was doing, and his brother. And you know, Hebrews start Exodus 23, you know, to the end. It says by faith Moses, So he had to have faith in God and what he was doing. I know they was out in that wilderness, and you know, they know that, like I said, people started growing and stuff like that. So Moses had to keep the faith for one thing, you know.
Yep. Moses got to keep the faith, but you know, Robert's right. You can't do nothing without God. So
Behind the proposal.
go ahead.
I wanted to also add, if God has had something for you to do, He has already figured out how He wants it done. So that's pretty much what, you know, Bobby is saying. He already knew how they were going to carry it out. What I see mostly in this lesson is the ability to listen. How well were the children of God, you know, listening? Were they ready to listen to Moses, to listen to God? Because he had already figured out everything they would need, how they would get from point A to point B, but they had to humble themselves enough to listen and to be obedient. And you think about us today, this is some of the same challenges we had. He has given us what we needed or do need to get from point A to B. The Bible teaches that He's given us all things, you know, for life and godliness. As far as the structure of the church, He has set that in place. We have to be humble enough to listen and follow His instruction. And Israel is our example. It's our example of the church today. When we look at Israel, that is the church in the wilderness. Because some of the same exact things they did back there that made God unhappy, unfortunately, some of us are doing it today. Bobby, yes.
Bobby.
and you know, it also made me think about, we talked about plan, and God had a plan for the Israelites, how they were going to, how they were going to leave or be rescued from Pharaoh. And in plans, sometimes the best plans, you have to have contingencies. But what else? You know, and that's one thing that I learned in my police days, that, you know, we had a plan, but we had to adjust on the fly. You know, adjust that, the master plan had to have adjustments in. So it's like, I think about how the greatness of God is that He told them that He was gonna rescue them. And then He told them, hey, you guys, when you leave, you know, you don't go this way, don't go by them, don't go that way with Philistines. You know, because you know you guys will run back to Pharaoh. He told them to go around into the desert. And so along the way, they had a problem to deal with, and that was Pharaoh. When they thought that they were done with when they left. So Pharaoh comes pursuing them, so God had a contingency plan for Pharaoh. And so he took care of Pharaoh and he got him through the sea. And so it just made me think that of the fact that there was some contingency plans that God had to make sure that they were taken care of, to help keep the plan going.
Yeah, now, God had everything set in motion. But just like us back then, Israelites complained. They always, everything that came up, they worried about. Now, God had the protection. Now, in Exodus chapter 13, verses 1 and 21, 21 to 22, Numbers. Anybody want to read Exodus? If they got it, pull it up. Chapter 13 and verses 21 to 22. Go ahead. Mark. Right here. You got somebody got it? I ain't got it. And somebody can get Numbers chapter 9, 15 to 23.
Exodus 13:21. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of the fire by night from before the people. That's 21 and 22.
Now, this is the way that God led the Israelites to the promised land. Everybody got Numbers? Chapter 9, verses 15 to 23. Go ahead.
And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, a cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony, and at even there was upon the tabernacle, as it were, the appearance of fire until the morning. So it was always cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after that, the children of Israel returned. And in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. At the commandment of the Lord, the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of the Lord, they pitched. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they rested in their tents. And when the cloud tarried long upon the tabernacle, many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and journeyed not. And so it was when the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle. According to the commandment of the Lord, they abode in their tents. According to the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. So it was when the cloud abode from even until the morning, that the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they journeyed. Whether by day or by night, that the cloud was taken up, they journeyed. Or whether it were 2 days, or a month, or a year, that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle, remaining thereon, the children of Israel abode in their tents and journeyed not. When it was taken up, they journeyed. Verse 23, at the commandment of the Lord, they rested in the tents, and at the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord and the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses.
Now, you can read the last one, Nehemiah. Anybody got it? Chapter 9, 12.
You led our ancestors by a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night, so that they could find their way.
Now, this is the way God moved Israel. Now, just a wild guess. Anybody know what this is called? what the Israelites used, what it is based on. This here. Anybody? So they have to be something the Israelites can recognize. Do anybody know what a Michelle is? Okay. Now, this is the right here. Now, Michelle, the Egyptian, the Persian, and the Greeks generally use this tool called the Michelle to lead their troops. Not everybody can see or hear the command that's at the front. The fire and the smoke symbolize to give guidance or directions. The troops are commanded and well known in this practice. So a Michelle is an iron vessel on top of a pole, consisted of oil, grease, wood, and coal. It stands in the front of the troop or the back. It let the troop people know where they at or what are they supposed to be doing. Anybody see that? So this is what the Israelites, the Persians, and the Greek are used to seeing. Guess what? God is the Machete. It stays in the front and it stays in the back. It helps them move towards the promised land. Now, it's not just a guide, it's a protector. Anybody got any questions on that?
Not a question, but something you covered, you haven't actually gotten to their leaving yet. If you mentioned in the cloud, God put a cloud between Israel when they left Egypt so that Pharaoh couldn't see them. So that explains what you just said about before and behind it.
Right.
It was the presence of God. The Michelle is what the men and the different nations used in giving commands. But that was, like we're saying about God being with them, that's the presence of God. You see a fire at night and it stays there. Or a cloud in the day that doesn't move. It's right there. And he let them know that's what he put there. I won't say a sign, that's the presence of God for them to obey. As Greta mentioned, it's all based on obedience. What they had to do was follow. He's protecting them and leading them with that fire.
Yeah.
Bigger?
This is a question that I don't know who would be able to really answer, but was the method that God used something that they were familiar with, and that's why he used it, or was that method copied? Is that what nations began to do in order to lead their troops? It's a question that I have when you brought up the share.
Well, the Israelites, the Persians, back in the day, they recognized a Michelle was a vessel that stood in front and in back. It was a way of communicating, a way of leading, a way of guiding. God took the place of something that they recognized. It's something like Jesus was doing in parable. It's something they recognize. If I would have came back in that day with a car and stood in front and back and a truck in the front, who would recognize me? God gave them something they recognize. So he said, you know what? I'll be able to share. They used to see a light in the front. They used to see smoke, smoking wood. They used to this. So I'm going to be there. I'm going to be the protector. I'm going to be their light. I'm going to be the one who guides them. Anybody want to read that? Again.
Exodus begins in the Egyptian region called Goshen. The people then traveled out of Egypt, and it is traditionally believed moved toward the southern end of the Sinai Peninsula. They camped at Mount Sinai, where Moses received God's commandments.
And that's the list that's shown in there. Anybody else? Guys, did you point it out? Yeah. This is the map. That's those. Maybe they travel and stuff. But I think Bobby said it earlier. That when they did left Pharaoh, God took them the shorter way. The longer way. What was the reason for that? Bobby already said. Because God thought if they were in the wrong war, they would revert back to Egypt. That's like us now, don't you think? Sometimes we get so much in a situation that we ready to go back to where we was saved from or tucking out. You know, sometimes I always say, you get too comfortable in something that you want to go back, but you was pulled out of there for your safety, or there's a reason why God took you out. But we all assume the first sign of trouble comes, the first sign of this, we want to run back. Why is that? We always say we got to trust in God. We believe in God. The Israelites, they, like he said, if they would have seen an army, they would have ran back. But all through this journey, they complain. They complain every time something happens. See, we say, we know God had the Israelites. But every time they look back when something happened, their faith went down. Is it? And like he said, we got to have faith. How are we going to have faith every time we turn around, we question?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Sometimes, like it's the flesh in us wants to go back to our comfort zone. And then the fear of the unknown is what keeps us from obeying and walking by faith is what's going to get us there, because we can't always see it. And like, I'm sorry, I can't get his name out, but like he said, you had to have faith, because God can give us a plan. He has already gave us a blueprint. But if we don't have the faith to travel it, we won't make it, because he gives us free will.
JJ?
It just, came to mind that, God taking them a longer route because it was quote, safer. At least from their perspective, that's why he did that. It makes me think, you know, how often in life we may spend a long time to obtain or achieve a goal simply because God knows, you know, Jonathan doesn't want to fight for this reason. He'd rather take what appears to be the easy and slow route to get there versus, you know, him going through some hardship for a short period and being able to overcome that situation. And I think that's applicable on an individual basis and as well as, you know, even potentially church community level. Because he knows our hearts. Unfortunately, you know, all of us are not fighters. Some of us, maybe most of us, maybe all of us at times shrink back, you know, when it comes down to standing on 10 toes, as they say, saying I'm here and I don't really care what you got. I'm ready to fight. So it just made me think, you know, how often do we have to go through long periods of hardship because it seems to be easier to get to the goal versus having a shorter period, harder hardship, if you will, to get to it. Dexter.
Just thinking along with what Nikki said, it's about, and you did it, it's the trust in God's plan. We can't see it. That's what she said. We can't always see it. But what you're saying is trust that it's his way and follow it. Because he's only going to show us good, even though we don't see it right away. It looks longer. So it's about the trust in what the Lord said earlier, that it's his plan, and we might not have to know it all. That's the faith. Because Barney said, I'm just calling it in. You gotta walk by faith, but that's the lesson. That's it.
Kevin Ward.
Head toward the front of the door after I say this. To me, I agree with what everybody was saying, but I also see how you can lose some faith if in waiting on God's promise to come through. Happened throughout Abraham and Sarah, and they were in the wilderness a long time. I mean, at some point you start to question, did I hear the right thing? I mean, that's a tough journey. So, but I do think I'm glad for these stories that are in the Bible because it teaches us that we need to persevere. Because we know what the end game is, but going through it can be very, very difficult. And you can start questioning, did I hear the right thing? Do I know the right thing? When it's not according to your timeline. I'm just being honest. 20 years is a long time to be walking around. Greta?
I just wanted to add on to what Kevin has said. 20 years is a long time, but let us go back. They put themselves in that position. And that's what I want us to remember. They could have got to the promised land 3 months, probably, I think, if don't quote me, right? Right after they left Egypt. But because of their own disbelief and their own disobedience, and God told them, if you remember, that's the 12 spies. God said, for every day you over there, y'all gonna be out there. And he said that no one that was 20 at that time and older would enter in. So they walked around in that circle for 40 years. If any lesson is to be taught in this is that when we are disobedient, and sometimes we reap the repercussions of our disobedience, and like he said, it does get hard, it does get burdensome, but we have to go back and remember that God had told us it was gonna happen. And of course, we already know the two that went in, Caleb and Joshua, out of the original, of the 12 spies, but it was because of Israel's own disobedience. They would not listen. They did not hear. And so because of that, they suffered the consequence. But even then, God took care of them. God still took care of them. But he told them, he said, everyone that's 20 and older, you will not enter the promised land. And they didn't. He said, your carcasses will die in this wilderness. And it did. But the problem was, it's not so much that he punished them, but that the ones that was behind that older group, they still seem like they didn't learn a lot either. And that's why that group is still being punished. So I agree with what everybody's saying, but sometimes we gotta look at what we did, put ourselves in certain situations, and then just be patient, knowing that God loves us, will help us, and we'll work through it. But we can realize, hey, Greta, you did this, and you just have to, have faith and just your obedience and just wait till you're delivered from it. Because the Hebrew writers still say, who God loves, he chastises.
Go ahead, so Sister Hardy actually said a lot of what I was gonna say. My only thing is that the situation that she was referring to, where the 12 spies went in and came out, and then so many situations after, when the book of Hebrews refers to how they behave, and even other books in the New Testament, it says that they receive the consequences that they receive because of disbelief. And it also warns us not to fall prey to them, because we could end up missing out on the promise that he has for us. So like this portion of scripture is very informational, and it's definitely a warning to us today not to behave the way that they do.
With all that's been said, and in light of what Brother Ward said, I would, because he may mention that sometimes the weight helps you to lose faith. I think that your faith was already shaky anyway, especially in the case of the Israelites in this instance, and then the instances that they spoke of. Their faith wasn't, God had delivered them, he had done all these miraculous things, and they got to the Red Sea and was like, well, oh my God, he brought us out here to die. Like they kept, like with all of the miracles that they saw God do, they weren't so past tense. They had just, he had just, the Passover just happened, and they were, going out, and they already were like, oh my God, God's gonna let us die. So their faith was already a little shaky. And I think, and we're not much different than them. So it's no, judgment about how they behave, because we act the same way. We can see God move in our lives, and then the next thing we know, a new storm comes and be like, now God, why would you do this to me? So we ain't much different. However, it's a lack of faith. And everybody talk about disbelief. And that's what it really boils down to. Do we believe God is who he said he is? Do we believe that God did what he did, that it was actually him? Because we like to attribute, things to ourselves. We like to attribute things to other people. Did God do the thing that he actually did? It wasn't God. So we don't always attribute God's miraculousness, God's goodness, God's glory to him. We like to give it to other people and other things and circumstances. And so I think, I don't think that it's the waiting that makes us lose faith. I think that we have a lack of faith, and we're not prepared for the blessing that God is going to give us, because we'll attribute that blessing to something else as well. So I don't necessarily agree that, the wait produces a lack of faith. I think that we wait because we lack faith, not that, we lose it while we're waiting.
JJ, Nicole.
We kind of took a lot of what I was going to say out of my mouth, but the biggest question was, I was thinking the same thing. The bigger question to me is, when you think about it, in this lesson and just hearing everything, is what do we do when our faith is shaken? What techniques do we have when our faith is shaken? Because in all transparency, I'm sure we have all experienced it and realized, like, and caught ourselves, because the Holy Spirit will bring you back. But what techniques do we have to use when your faith is shaken?
The Bible teaches us that we're one of enough. That's why fellowship is so important. That's why relationships are so important. If we truly build relationships with each other and really care for each other, when you are weak, that's when we come in and help you through those times. And it's vice versa. All of us will fall weak to something. Something will, because we're human. But that's why relationships are important. And that's why you also surround yourself, the Bible says, even communication corrupt good manners. You surround yourself with positive Christians. Not people just say they're Christians and doing anything they want to do, but those who you see that are walking faithful and you have a relationship, and all of that's important. We will not go get to heaven alone. We will not, because it wasn't designed for that. That's why we're a family. And in a family, we all help each other. But what Satan's job is to do is to keep us separate. You'll find anything to separate us. I don't know, you like blue, I like pink, we don't like each other now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know that sounds silly, but sometimes what we fall out of just not that silly, really something that could be taken care of. So the relationship, building relationship, true loving relationship with each other. That don't mean we're gonna agree on everything. But one thing, I'm not gonna let that happen to you. And you're not gonna let that happen to me. That true love is there.
Mom said a lot of it, but I'd like to just drive a little bit deeper, because I think, having relationships is good, but I think we need to do life with each other, like real life, because we see each other, we have a semblance of relationship a lot of times. We like to, we see each other, we think we're close, we think we know one another, but we have not done life with each other. Nobody, knows, and, you might not know what the inside of my house is like, or you might not know what I go through at work on a daily basis. We need to be we need to be a real true community. We have girlfriends and guy friends outside the body that we do life with, and we need to do that same life with the people who love God. So then when something comes up, you don't have to go to them because they're doing life with you. They see it happening. They see what's going on in your life. They see the changes that are being made. And we don't have to step in because we already are in. I think the problem is sometimes we are stepping in and we don't necessarily have all the details, so we can't really be of much help. So I think it's about doing life one with another and practicing that, like letting people that love God be the people that you call your best friends, the people that you call your real brother. Like, this is my family, and not this whole distant thing that we kind of keep people in the body at an arm's length because, I don't want them to judge me about this. It's like, maybe you need judgment. Maybe you need somebody to chastise you and tell you this ain't the way you need to live. Maybe that's what you need, as opposed to, keeping that distance between the people that love God. Because when something happens and you need faith, you need people that have faith around you. You don't need people who have a semblance of it. You need people who know who has the power and know who to go to, that will pray for you when you're not around, and pray for you when you come. Like, we pray together. If something happens, let's go ahead and pray. And I think we don't do that enough. And I think that's the reason why we struggle so much, because we're not doing life together. We call ourselves a congregation, but we're not really together. And I think we need to really get together. And I don't mean that in a Sunday, Wednesday kind of fashion. I mean on an everyday basis. You need to be at my house, have dinner. I need to be at your house, we can call each other on the phone. And not to just say hello, but to have real conversation like friends. Like, we need to think of each other as friends and love each other like that. We need to have some phileo between one another. And I don't think we do that. I don't think we do it well.
Okay. Why did God took him the long way? Why did he want it? Because God knew how their heart was. He knew if he would have took them that short way, the first thing they would have seen is that army or seen them and ran back. Sometimes we see stuff and, like she said, we need to know we call ourselves brothers and sisters. Are we brothers and sisters? We say we know each other. We need to learn. She said, I always think this is a practice. This is something that keep on, and keeping on. You always say, like she said, I need to see, but let's be honest. Anybody in here, put your hands up. How many of y'all been to my house? How many of y'all been to my house? Ward, you haven't been to my house? Huh? Now, how many of y'all been to Devin's house?
Well, Devin would invite me.
We call each other brothers and sisters. God sees the Israelites as his family. He brought them out. He's protecting them. If any of y'all come to my house or I see y'all my brother and my sister. I'm not going to turn my back on you when you're in trouble. If God really wanted to, he could have taken that short path and let that army do what they want to. But he took them the long path.
I just wanted to say how many people have been in my house. That's cool.
When we talk about building relationships, I think that comes, it's not just something that happens instantly, it's something that comes over time. True relationships are built like anything, like slow and methodical, because people have to be able to trust you, have to be able to know you have their best interests at heart. But what we have to do is make sure that we extend to build relationships, like you said, with each other and with everyone. There are certain people that you will have better relationship than others, but everyone here should know without a shadow of a doubt that we are here for you and with you. And those are the relationships that we have to continue. They are being built, they have been built, but we can make them better and extend them to everyone. Because we got different personalities, and all personalities don't always, do the same thing, but we're all still a part of each other. And everyone should still feel like they belong together here in the family of God.
JJ? So real quick, just dealing with the portion of scripture in reference to the 12 spies. And this is also in response to Nicole's question. There was 12 people that went in, 2 out of the 12 said, let's go get it. God gave it to us. 10 said, ain't no way. It's too big, blah, 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 blah. So you also need to know who to listen to. Because it's people here that, like Whitney said, but like just Hardy alluded to, you got some people here that are actually walking in the word, doing the best that they can to resemble Jesus in their day-to-day life, and they want to be close to him. And then you got other people who are just showing up, not putting any work, and they don't have a relationship with the Spirit. I'd say he's not dead, but they're not listening to him, which means they can't give you advice from the Spirit. So the reason that Israel ended up in the situation that they ended up in, even after God took them a long way and then took the spies in and then said, hey, what y'all want to do? It's because they didn't listen to those two. Who actually were filled with the Spirit, and were speaking what God wanted them to speak. So one way that you can regain your faith is knowing to listen to in time of trouble. Okay. You got something?
I probably don't need the mic, but to answer your question about why did you take the short way and not the long way, the short way would have been really easy. But then we gotta remember, God works in mysterious ways. Like, we are like, God is so powerful and almighty. Like, sometimes we wonder what's going on, but then at the end result, you look back and you're like, okay, God, that's what you was doing. You know what I'm saying? So he is that awesome. Like, he doesn't even think like this. Like, he just works in mysterious ways. So I think that was the question that you was asking about. And that's what I got.
And on that, you're right, God did take them the long way. But sometimes we, as Christians, always want to take the short path or a short way to take. And when things don't go right, we want to put the blame on God. But why did they go right? Go ahead.
I just want to clear up. He took them the long way because of disobedience.
Yeah.
Everybody understand that. They did it to themselves. They did it to themselves because they were told, because like JJ said, when those spies went in and they did not listen, that's when he said, because you didn't listen, now you're going to walk in this circle for 40 years. So they did it to themselves. Their own disobedience made them in the wilderness for 40 years. They could have been in Canaan long time ago, but they, like everyone's saying, they didn't listen. I just want to drum that home, unless I'm wrong, and I understand the scripture teaches they were in the wilderness because of their disobedience. That's why he took them the long way.
That's what it is.
Yeah, that's why.
But was there, God knew if he would have took them that short way. I mean, how was their mindset at that time? Because everything Moses said or do, they questioned. I mean, let's be honest. If we would see something that y'all see, y'all like, well, wait a minute. I know it looks right, but I'm gonna go this way. God said, no, because if you're going this way, this was gonna happen. It's better off to take the long way. And then, like you said, she said, they act up all the time. And sometimes God said, you know what? I'm fed up. I'm gonna make y'all wander all around until that generation is gone. I just be honest. Yeah, Jesus is gonna come back, but how much time do we have that we can keep on playing games? Because sooner or later he's gonna say, I'm done. His father said, go back. There's a time that we gotta understand that. Because he's gonna come back. He's setting everything up. The Israelites, they had it made. They was the chosen people. They had it made. God told them, I got y'all. All you got to do is follow me. I'm your protector. I'm I'm everything. But soon as things started happening, we want to back off of it. But then we want to put the blame on God. God didn't tell you, no, I told you to come this way, but you want to do this. Look, even Paul asked for questions. Paul asked, can you take this out of my side? But he told him, no, my grace, you're going to go through some things that you need to understand. The more you go through it, the harder you get, the stronger your faith gets. Sometimes you say, you know what, God, I'm going to go through this because you want me to go through this. I don't know what is over here, but I know you got my back. I don't know what this man gonna do. I know you got my back. Go ahead and give it away.
It's just like what Greta said, you know, he let that generation die off in the wilderness who's gonna mull it and stuff like that. If they got the kid. You know, he didn't let them get in. Most of them didn't get in the promised land. So he let that generation die, like disobedient. You know, I think the Israel couldn't handle the promised land. So he got rid of all those people who were grumbling and mumbling and stuff like that. He let that generation die off and start anew.
just a point. I think it went in two stories. And the Israelites did not, they went the long way because of their disbelief. They didn't get to go into the promised land after going through the wilderness for 40 years because of their disobedience. Like it was they went the long way because God said, if you were to go through the land of the Philistines and war happens, they're gonna be scared to turn back. So that's what their disbelief kept them from getting there quicker. But their disobedience kept them in the wilderness longer. Those 40 years were due to disobedience. The distance was due to disbelief. And both of them we need to work on in our own lives. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
During the lesson that we had last night, it really involved people questioning things, but still moving in their faith.
Yeah.
So we dealt with John the Baptist, mom, we dealt with Mary. We then came out with the example of Gideon, with Moses. A lot of people, when we read through the Bible, who still show faith after they question things. When the angel or God, when the message comes to them saying, this is what's going to happen, all of them have a response of, how will I know? And God gives them an answer. When I see the direction of him leading them in different areas, them murmuring, and him still being a light, as you mentioned, as it was Michelle, it shows the patience and the everlasting love that God has regardless of our actions. But it also shows this is the answer. You said something earlier where you said if it doesn't go the way we want it, we wonder why it went wrong. Sometimes it's not going wrong, it's just the answer God gave. He told John the Baptist's father, because you asked or because you didn't believe, you will now be mute. It's not a punishment that you're going to be mute. You'll just be mute, and now you'll know when this happens. This was of the Lord. Is it a punishment that they went to serve? Maybe, but we know it's of the Lord. Well, it is. I'm sorry. I did correct.
Yes, it was.
So yes, it was a punishment, but it's still of the Lord, and it's still moving towards the will and the direction of the Lord. So we see a lot of times, every example we have when we say, oh, so-and-so lived in faith, what happens when I'm not operating in faith? Most of these people outside of Jesus show the area where they questioned it and then had to then consistently move as well. So we have a number of examples to show what happens when we question and how to move through. But again, as Philippians and a lot of other people said, that unity between each other when God gave, even as he gave Moses, and he said, I'm giving you your brother, as well as some signs to move forward and some things you may be worried.
Okay, yeah, you're right on that. And we did a final end, but y'all right. The Israelites, to me, they complained so much that God even told Moses, they're not complaining to you, they complain. You know what? And God himself, he said, you know what? I'm gonna cut them off. That whole generation, nobody in that generation went over. It's sometimes we gotta understand that Christ is our Savior. But we want to question and question and question. When the times come, what you gonna do when you get to the gate? He's looking at you. Well, I thought you'd come. Just like God said to the Israelites, I'm tired of your complaint. No, I gave you enough time, and you still didn't listen. You wanted you questioned my man. I sent for you. You saw the miracles. You saw what I did. You saw what I stopped. I brought Pharaoh down to his knees, and he won't bump you, and you still question. Mm-hmm. It's like sometimes as things get easier, we want to get hard-headed. That's the problem. Things get easier, we get hard-headed. Well, wait a minute. No, you can't. You can't do nothing. From waking up in the morning to laying back down, you got nothing. Because if he tapped his finger or said no, you ain't got to wake up the next day. True. So we need to understand that these Israelites who walked all there, God could have said, 1 million of y'all dropped dead. He could have did that. But you know, he said, He had grace because he let the generations went through. Okay, you cut it.